way. And these guys do that on a regular basis as well. However, once in a while, and now for about 30 minutes, we want to lift our heads a little bit, look at the high-level issues, because without them, all the technical stuff in the world makes no sense. I'm not going to introduce them. They'll introduce themselves and their company, and they're going to address the first question, which is, what are the high-level issues that your customers are giving to you? Please.
Thanks, Roger. So hello, I'm Rodney Rogers. I'm the chairman and CEO of VirtuStream. We are a cloud management platform software and cloud IaaS utility company. So higher level things. I think it was, so we kind of focus on the enterprise, that Fortune 500 use case. A couple of years ago, I think there was somewhat of a pre-described notion around what you could use the cloud for. And there were some founded and some somewhat unfounded reservations around using it, but it was really more around modern applications that were being developed, that compute-intensive, stateless web app type of use case. And I think over the last couple of years and today, there's a lot of pressure in the C-suite of the Fortune 500 or of the larger cap sector to really extend that, to really gain the benefits of cloud in any kind of application use case. So things have shifted from early, a couple of years ago it was kind of early adopters and people who were doing nothing, to now those companies that are advanced and are expecting higher order type of feature sets out of platforms. The ability to utilize platform as a service and abstract the way the infrastructure as a service, the ability to apply the concepts of infrastructure orchestration to full application landscape orchestration. So the cloud is not only attacking the underlying hardware and resource cost base, but also optimizing the IT labor associated with managing these complete and holistic, heavyweight type of enterprise environments. I think I think there's now a new pressure to sort of extend the app development end of utilizing the cloud and driving out the benefits of cost and agility that we all hear of ad nauseum, to now that IO-intensive stateful application use case. There's really nothing that can't take advantage of cloud architecture, true multi-tenant cloud architecture, and the automation and the agility that you gain, the agility that you gain from true cloud automation. There was also some confusion as to the difference between virtualization and cloud, or the automation layer atop virtualization a couple of years ago. We're way past that now, and now it's much more discerning, much more punitive around specific feature sets and feature set offerings in and around true cloud automation, provisioning, management, orchestration.
Hi, I'm Brendan O'Brien. I'm the chief evangelist and co-founder of ARIA Systems. ARIA is a recurring revenue management platform, so my perspective is distinctly centered on the monetization opportunities that come with cloud technologies and with IoT technologies. And our portfolio of customers is very centered on those two groups. The reason is because both of those fields gravitate pretty naturally toward recurring revenue business models. So what we're seeing is a movement, not just a movement away from one-time purchase CapEx models into OpEx models, but into services which lend themselves to subscriptions at a simplistic level, but at a less simplistic level, the pendulum has definitely started to swing much more in favor of consumption-based models. And obviously most cloud providers, I think, will naturally understand what I'm talking about. People want to consume and pay for things based on how much they utilize. So what we're talking about there, in order to make that effective, is access to data. Large volumes of data, disparate data, unstructured data, and unfortunately that kind of flies in the face of the initial strategy that people have in their heads when they first decide, it's time for me to set up a system that's going to support a recurring revenue business model. What I think most people come to the table with is what I call a data mitigation strategy, where they're actually saying, okay, here's the flood of data that my system produces. I'm going to pluck out this, this, and this, because that might influence a bill. Therefore, it's going to go into my billing or revenue management system. And what we try to socialize is, don't try to make those decisions in advance. I mean, you can actually get that data, you can put it all all of it, anything you can measure side by side with your what you traditionally think of as billing data. And if you don't do that, you're going to be self-limiting, right? You need to future-proof your business. Part of what we know about this world that we're all in is that these technologies are becoming ever more commoditizable. That's great, you can get to market quickly, but so can your competitors. And your competitive differentiators are going to be the pricing and packaging options that you offer to your market. And doing that needs to be done in a very agile and reactive fashion, right? You don't know in advance how your market's going to want to consume your technology. If I roll out an IoT lawnmower, I don't necessarily know if people are going to want to pay a flat fee per month, or if they want to pay based on how far the lawnmower travels or how many rotations the blade makes or whatever. If I can measure those things, it behooves you to get all that stuff, put it in your system now, and if you need to make a quick pivot in the future to address a market and give them packaging and pricing options that they find more desirable or that position you differently against your competitors, you're going to need that data not just to influence a bill, but to get a deeper analytical understanding of your customers in addition to the pure transactional data.
Okay, IoT lawnmower, you heard it here first. I want one.
Good evening, I'm Bart Copeland. I'm the CEO of Active. We have a platform that allows the enterprise to be agile, and when Roger asked, what are our customers looking for, we focus on the Enterprise 2000 or the Fortune 2000 customer base, and just a few themes that we're seeing with these large customers. One is they recognize that they need to move much quicker. Otherwise, they're going to be disrupted by potentially competitors that they don't even know exist. And I always like to talk about Uber, how Uber is disrupting a whole transportation system that we've all become accustomed to. And a lot of these large corporations are fearful of being disrupted by somebody they don't even know exists today. So what they care about, and it's a word that's used way too much, but it's about agility. How can we move faster as an organization? And so they're looking for solutions to bring agility in the organization. And what is interesting with the whole cloud computing space is that obviously the virtualization, commoditizing the infrastructure layer is pretty powerful stuff. But what we're witnessing is, you've got all of this compute power, whether it's on private cloud or public cloud or hybrid cloud. You've got all this compute power that you can turn on a dime very fast. But how do you get the rest of the organization to respond to that and actually use this instantaneous compute power? And that's where we're seeing a lot of our customers wanting to figure out how to make that better. So where our sweet spot in the industry is that the platform is a service layer. And we are providing a platform that makes it really easy for organizations to be agile. But the other thing we're seeing actually has nothing to do with technology whatsoever, is the cultural challenges that exist within an organization to embrace these technologies, because they're so ingrained of doing things the old way that you put new technology in place, and the procedures that embrace those technologies don't work with the new technologies. So there is a real cultural change that has to go. And how do you embrace the organization to embrace these new technologies is actually the harder part. It has nothing to do with technology at all. It's about change in general.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Cowie. I'm the chief scientist at Dyn. So Dyn is a cloud-based internet performance company. We're working with our customers to make sure that their end users have a great end user experience. And today what that mostly means is that their traffic from the cloud has to get across the commodity public internet, and their traffic has to get there faster and more reliably and safely, despite the fact that they're operating within the constraints of the public internet. I think that when you look at this audience, right, I might ask you, how many of you are actually delivering services right now to an international audience, outside the United States, outside Western Europe?
Large number.
Yeah, a lot of people. So you'll know, that there's, if we look across these 150 activities that we have coming up in the next few days, I think, this is the key thing that is common across them is user experience. It's the reason that we're all here. It's the reason you can make $1 on any cloud service you provide, or if you have internal customers, it's the reason that people are happy with the services that you provide. I think that especially outside the United States and Western Europe, as you look at more serving a global audience, a lot of these commoditizations and reductions in price and amazing things that these platform providers can do for you are fantastic. What they're going to give you, though, is an abundance of choice. You're going to have the ability to put services in places with flexibility you never imagined, but you still have to get the traffic to the user. And that traffic is coming across an infrastructure that you neither own nor pay for, except the edges of it. And that's going to take a lot of measurement. And I think if I were going to identify the one blind spot, perhaps, that we have going forwards, if we can raise our sights a little bit, I think you're going to discover that performance assurance on the public internet is going to be one of those main determinants that will have to complement our increasingly mature understanding of how to deploy services in the cloud to make sure it all gets where it's going.
Great, thank you. He has one, go ahead.
Good deal. Dave Wagstaff, so I'm Vice President and Chief Architect at B-Square. We make software, tools, and services for smart connected devices. So there's a lot to be said for the cloud. We focus on the IoT, the smart device side of it. And really what we're trying to do is work with our customers to understand how they can differentiate themselves. And really it's around services. I mean, we're going into a world where we deliver services. People understand how to consume them and pay for that, which is a challenge because you got to figure out how to charge for it. So how do you monetize this Internet of Things and cloud storage and communications? Everybody wants a piece of that pie, so determining how to do that is very important. But you know, part of our challenge is how do we map the business needs of our customers to the technology that all of this stuff provides, because they're not interested in the technology, right? You don't want to be the guy selling the spark plugs at an auto show. They came there for the show, they came not for the piece parts. So a lot of our work is around demystifying technology and making it available so that you can actually drive new revenue streams and new opportunities that you may not have thought were possible before IoT.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Seth Proctor. I'm the CTO at NuaDB. NuaDB is a relational, a SQL database built around a fundamentally new architecture that's designed to scale out on demand and still work like a single, logical, consistent database. And so for our customers and the people we talk to about cloud, this is a core enabling technology. It's foundational to be able to solve a number of problems. And in particular, I think there are two things that I hear time and time again from customers, right? And one of them is about this question of how you get to the cloud, and whether that's taking existing applications or taking existing development knowledge, operational knowledge, and shifting it to the cloud, and whether it's public cloud or whether it's something on-premise or something hybrid. Essentially, it's about taking those existing tools and experiences and getting them to a model that's all about a very dynamic nature. We heard the word agility several times, but you know, really agility, things that are running on demand, things that should be able to scale out on demand, and that's very challenging. And so finding those core enabling technologies, finding a way to actually be able to get bootstrapped is really important. The cloud is still really scary, especially to a lot of enterprises when you think about questions like security, when you think about what happens when you're running across geographies and issues of data residency, issues of protection. It's very hard to deal with, right? And that brings us to the second key thing that I hear a lot of people talking about with us, which is about simplicity, right? Which is as you're building out increasingly complicated infrastructure and as you're building out across geographies, across data centers, across domains of control, you're building very complicated systems. And so you need services and you need technology that help you simplify. And simplify could be about kind of multi-model deployments so that you can do more with the same data in one service instead of having to replicate your data, run multiple different services to be able to answer different questions. Simplicity can be about using policy to drive automation and be more hands-off so the software understands how to react to problems and kind of deal with the situation itself. But all of these kind of core fundamental architectural issues, I think, are the things that people are really grappling with right now. And I think that's what's great about the cloud right now is it's so democratizing, right? Enterprise a few years ago was this very rarefied thing. We heard the comment about the Fortune 2000, right? I mean, a few years ago that probably would have been Fortune like 200, you know. And increasingly, the kinds of problems that we traditionally label as enterprise are things that startups can do, and that's awesome. That's one of the things I love about my job is being able to talk to people in that space. I'll give a talk about that tomorrow, but I think that's really where we see a lot of people interest is how do I get to that cloud model, and once I get there, how do I actually use it to simplify my overall environment, cut costs, make things more manageable, actually sleep at night and not stress as much about the security issues.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gondar Skolps. I'm sales director at DEC, the European data center operator. We have the infrastructure running from the Rush to London, and the main issues that the customers today are facing, we have to say we are working with enterprise customers with tasks on moving core systems into the cloud, whether it's public cloud, private cloud, or the hybrid cloud. And for the main enterprises, there are a couple of questions. The security and the data compliance security issues is the topmost. However, the agility with which they can implement the systems in the cloud is another one. And obviously, things related to stability, redundancy of the system is very important if you are moving out to the cloud your core systems, not supporting but live core systems. Okay.
Great, thank you. I want to do a little bit of a show of hands, and then since it's a political night, we'll finish with everyone. You have 1 minute to summarize your viewpoint. But a show of hands, I hear the word fear a little bit. So how many of you, just raise your hand, do seem to perceive, encounter some fear from the high-level executives at your customers? Fear of innovation, fear of disruption. I think that's an issue. Almost all, but there's one that is not. Fear of getting left behind. Okay, and Rodney's going to address this when it's his turn. I can see. We'll get there. As far as low level, do you see any sort of disconnect between the people that are doing the technical work and the programmers, and maybe up to the architect level? How many of you see some sort of disconnect somewhere along the way in the management of your customers? Raise your hand so everyone can see. There you go. Rodney sees that too. Okay, and so what I'd like to do, instead of me talking, we do have some time left. In a couple of minutes, if you could describe how do you address that fear, how do you address any disconnects, and what do you do really to close people to say, look, this is why you need to go, not so much with our technology, but with this technology, with cloud computing, and where that leads. How do you close people to get them over whatever humps you're seeing? And go ahead, you all have about 2 minutes to answer that.
Okay. So I think I do see more of a fear of not embracing it now than a fear of embracing it. I think that flipped 18 to 24 months ago. I've also learned over the last 5 years that generalisms don't work in this space. So the reason I didn't raise my hand is because I don't see consistent fear. I don't see consistent courage. It really depends on the organization, the use case. The use case vary vastly. You talked about running, sort of core applications in the cloud. The things that we see as a requirement to give a Fortune 500 CIO, CTO the courage to do that is being able to put assurance around application latency. So go beyond infrastructure availability assurance and go to actual application performance assurance on cloud stacks, whether you're an IaaS or a PaaS or whatever. So there's a higher order expectation now, and if you have the right engineering, you have the right solution, you can find that. BIOS level attestation or establishing root of trust at the hardware level within software-based clouds is actually possible with the right engineering, with the right skill sets. Disconnects, yeah, you see them all over the place. I think the middle part of the organization has gotten out ahead of the higher or the managed sides of the organization. Yeah, and the very early or the very lower parts of a lot of times the technology structure within Fortune 500 companies hasn't sort of figured out the method around authority and such. Shadow IT is a great example of a highly productive disruptive force inside the enterprise. So.
Yeah, I have to echo what Rodney just said about the middle is preceding the top here. We find our stickiness with our technology with what we call forward-thinking executives who have the bravery to say, I'm going to bust out of the technology and process box that my company, my enterprise has been living with for decades, and try something new. And where we find success is when those executives are able to sort of carve out one small line of business or one geography and treat it as, you know, an incubator, right? And prove out that you can do this more effectively, more cost effectively, and more quickly on these new cloud-based technologies like ours, and then have something to actually, you know, show me the money. You know, it's not like, you know, 12 years ago when we actually founded the company, where people, you know, said, I'm going to put my entire customer data set and all their credit cards, and I'm going to put it in, what, a multi-tenant system on some server farm. Where is that? In Philadelphia? You're smoking crack. Today, obviously, we've crossed that hurdle, and by letting executives prove out one line of business, start small, that gives the rest of the organization a little bit more comfort. It's definitely not like trying to sell cloud in 2007, but there's still a fair amount of evangelizing that needs to be done.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just to expand on these, it's a similar response, but absolutely there's fear out there, but I don't think it's a panic fear. It's just a fear of wanting to excel in your organization and wanting to do things better and faster. The disconnect, though, is very strong, and we at ActiveState believe that actually the developer is the kingmaker going forward. The developer is driving change, and part of that disconnect that we see is between the developers, between IT ops, and the senior leadership team. But you're always going to have that disconnect, because whenever you bring in new technology, it means change, as I referred to earlier. But what we see happening, I think these gentlemen on my right mentioned, is that you want to start small, or they inferred it, that you want to start small. And you find a team that wants to embrace something, and you let them run with it and let them start small. They'll find another team that they infect, and before you know it, it starts building a critical mass. And if you look at a lot of the new technologies that have been embraced by organizations today, it's happened that way. It's a bottom-up approach. And along the way, there are a few, there's more than a few. There's CIOs that can embrace this change. They see it, and they allow it to happen. And then you can start seeing it growing on a massive scale. When I say growing on a massive scale, this new technology being embraced in the organization. But the concept today of taking technology and putting it one fell swoop into an organization, it doesn't work that way. You need to start small and let it grow.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at people who are out there now, I hear a lot less fear, and I think a couple of trends are working in our favor here. First of all, because of the way that I think society in general and the enterprise community has been evolving in the last year or two, you find people who are a lot more ready to talk about infrastructure issues, right? This used to be something you talk about with your network guys or your developers, and now everybody understands what infrastructure is, the infrastructure that connects us all, that connects the various clouds to each other over the internet, because they read the New York Times, right? They watch CNN. So one trend that's great for us for reducing fear is that people are ready to have the conversation about intelligently building infrastructure, about designing measurement strategies so you don't get blindsided when infrastructure fails, as it inevitably does. I think the other trend that is reducing fear among the people we talk to is that today the CIO's office is very much about putting big data to work, right? This is now a standardized pattern. If you have a fear, if you have a problem, you get some data and you go answer the question. And so we found a lot of sort of a receptive audience among people who are trying to make some very frightening decisions. A lot of customers have these sort of very expensive legacy leased line spider web networks that cover the world and cost a lot of money. And they're saying, is it safe for me to replace that with some cloud-based infrastructure, meaning replace it with the public internet under certain conditions? And the answer to that inevitably is, let's take a look and find out. So I think in terms of putting people's fears not to rest, but putting them in their proper place, I feel very, very good about the fact that the tools that we're bringing out, like Dyn Internet Intelligence, that are putting some of these statistics in people's hands, and that's all the way from developers up to C-suite, is letting them answer some of these questions for themselves.
Thank you.
Without a doubt, I think technology has leaped ahead of some of these business issues, and to our detriment in many cases. So the idea is really we're enamored with the how. How do we do things as opposed to the why? You know, why should we be using these technologies to increase the business in some way? And to address the, you know, slow to start, because people in some regards are confused as where to even start in this morass of IoT and cloud, is to start small and pick a use case that you can easily identify, you can easily articulate, and that you can actually further within the organization. And you can either fail fast or succeed fast and move it on to the next piece of it. So really, you don't lead with the technology, you lead with the business reasons, and then you use and understand how you can leverage technology to drive that. So it really is kind of a shift, and I know that as we talk to customers, that's what we found out, is you lose them as soon as you start talk about the technology, because it doesn't bring any value to them. But if you speak their language, use their words and nouns, and their business needs, and then you map that to the technology, you're valuable as a partner, and obviously your product is also.
Thank you.
So I'm a technologist. I believe you do have to lead with both the business cases and the respectfully and the technology. And I think I'll just quickly say, because we're running low on time, I completely agree with the comments about measuring and about data, right? I mean, I think that I don't talk to anyone today who doesn't want to do something with the cloud. That doesn't always mean public cloud, but everyone wants to get into that model, right? The challenge is the unknown. You know, what happens in the security issues? That's a huge issue for people. How do I measure systems? How do I understand bandwidth? How do I know how to provision things? You know, how does my previous knowledge map to this? And one of the fascinating things about cloud is it is something, on the one hand, that you want to make familiar to people. You want to give them something that they know how to work with, that they know how to compare to previous architectures and experiences. On the other hand, it's supposed to enable you to do new things through new technology. And so you want to convince people that they have a comfort level, that there are things they understand, there are things they know how to measure, there are things you can work with them to really explain to them both the technological things that they can do and also the business use cases, how they save money, why it's important, what new things you can solve in this environment. At the same time, you want to help them understand what's new and how it changes things and how it helps them grow. And so that's certainly one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing, is kind of first helping people understand how do you relate this to what's familiar, what's in your comfort zone, and then we say, okay, now that you're there, let's take the next step and let's show you some really just wicked cool, exciting stuff you can do with it. So that's right. The wicked's for all y'all out here in California. I do live in Boston, so it's wicked awesome back east. There you go.
Okay, on a fear level, I think today it is actually quite easy to convince the business management that cloud is a viable solution, because when you create enterprise-grade cloud, because of economies of scale, you can actually create the solution that is much more resilient to any failures than if the company is doing it in-house. So it is easy to convince that cloud is one viable option. Now, regarding the divide, I have a slightly different opinion, or actually view on that perspective, and that is from our customers in Russia, where it's an opposite. The business management wants to go into the cloud, to the outsourcing, because they see that it gives them a better protection of their business data. But IT guys are those who are against it. Today they are in control of all the purchases of IT equipment, of IT systems, etc. And now management is taking that away from them and giving it to the outsourcing. So, different side of the globe, different drivers.
I think I'll be, here we go. I think I heard about 87 specific issues raised here, but we're running out of time. Please approach these gentlemen in person, find them on Twitter, go to their companies, talk to them. They each have a lot to say. I thank you for your participation, and please don't go. We have a power panel starting in about 8 seconds. If our women in technology participants could